Distinguished delegates, Agenda Item 6 of the 11th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development will commence shortly. May I please ask all to take their seats? Thank you. Distinguished delegates, Agenda Item 6 of the 11th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development will commence shortly. May I please ask all to take their seats? Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, the meeting is called to order. Let's resume this forum with the consideration of Agenda Item 6, Adoption of the Report. I have the pleasure to present to you the draft report of the 11th Asia Pacific Forum for Sustainable Development as contained in document ESCAP/RAPSD/2024/YL.1. As you know, the annexed chair summary captures the deliberation of the forum. As it is not a negotiated document, it is open only for comments related to factual correction and will not be discussed now. If there are such needs for corrections, delegates are kindly requested to contact the Secretariat. An addendum to the chair's summary captures the priority actions identified in the SDG profile and discussed during the parallel SDG roundtables. As you can see the draft on the screen, may I propose that we go through the text of the draft report section by section with the aim of adopting it. The text has been edited according to UN editorial guidelines. We will now review the draft report section by section.
I see the distinguished delegate from Russia has his flag. You can say, I see the distinguished delegate from Russia has his flag.
I recognize the distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Прежде чем мы с вами перейдем к рассмотрению доклада, я хотел бы задать один вопрос и высказать один комментарий. Прежде всего, наша делегация хотела бы иметь четкое понимание в отношении того, что вы называете section by section. Почему я задаю этот вопрос? В духе коллегиальности, который мы очень ценим здесь, на площадке ESCAP, в духе вот этой дружественной коллегиальности, я хотел бы с самого начала сказать, что у нас есть целый ряд соображений по документу, которые имеют сущностный, meaningful характер. Они не носят редакционный характер. Они продиктованы соображениями системного, процедурного и правового характера принципиального значения. В том числе у нас имеются соображения, касающиеся фактологического насыщения доклада. Позвольте мне не согласиться с тем, что вы сказали, что в случае наличия у делегации фактологических поправок, corrections, делегации приглашаются обратиться к секретариату. Мы так понимаем, что это межправительственный процесс. И если у делегации имеются соображения фактологического характера, то, наверное, это будет в интересах всех делегаций узнать, а что же это за соображения фактологического характера, прежде чем потом делегация увидит эти фактологические исправления в документе. С моим глубоким уважением к вам, господин председатель, прошу принять во внимание то, что сейчас я сказал от имени нашей делегации. И когда мы перейдем к рассмотрению доклада, section by section, as you said, имейте в виду, пожалуйста, что у нас есть целый ряд соображений существенного и фактологического характера. Спасибо.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Russian Federation. I would like to request Secretary to clarify.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the distinguished delegate for his comments. We were coming to the discussion or examination of the draft report. Section by section may not have been quite correct. We will be going through it paragraph in blocks of 3 paragraphs. As you can see, the draft report has a total of 21 paragraphs, which we intend to go to in blocks of 3, where delegates can raise any issues that they would like to. In terms of the Chair's summary of discussions, which is in the annex, that, as has also been past precedent in the APFSD, is the Chair's summary, and in such it's not a negotiated document. That's why we're allowing, or we're giving delegates a week's time to point us to any factual errors that might be in the Chair's summary. So we would like to request member states to kindly alert us to these by the 29th of February. That would be my response to your comments for the time being. And
I recognize the distinguished delegate from Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thanks to the Secretariat for your explanation. We would like to request you to go paragraph by paragraph, albeit, a lot of the, paragraphs are fairly basic in content. With regard to Chair's summary, we do understand that this is not a negotiated document. However, we do ask the Secretariat to ensure that the language does reflect agreed international language to the extent possible, to avoid any sort of misunderstanding, miscommunication within the text. There were several that we have seen in there, so we'd really like you to adhere to those international agreement standards. With regard to the fine interpretation of the factual corrections, we do point out that if the proposal or the idea was raised by one party, I think it should be mentioned as such in the text, so that it isn't construed as something that was almost like a negotiated outcome. Thank you very much.
I would like to request Secretary to respond the queries.
thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the distinguished delegate from Japan. We can go through one by one the paragraph. That would be fine. Thank you also for alerting us to agreed international language. There, it would be helpful for the Chair's summary if your delegation recognizes any terms that are not international agreed language, if you could alert us by email to this so that we can correct it accordingly. Thank you very much.
Now I recognize the distinguished delegate from Russian Federation again.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Во-первых, я хотел поблагодарить бы вас и секретариат за предоставленные разъяснения. И должен вам сказать, что мы именно и предполагаем работать строго в рамках этих пониманий. И, во-вторых, я должен сказать, что причина, по которой я как раз поднял флаг второй раз, она абсолютно совпадает с тем, что сказал уважаемый представитель делегации Японии. Рассмотрение документа по параграфам. Спасибо.
Thank you. Are there any comments on paragraph 1? As I see no comment on paragraph 1, paragraph 1 is adopted. Now, are there any comments on paragraph 2? I see no comment, so paragraph 2 is adopted. Now, are there any comments on paragraph 3? I see no comment. Paragraph 3 also adopted. Let's move to paragraph 4. Are there any comments on paragraph 4? I see none. Paragraph 4 is adopted. Now paragraph 5. Any comments? I see no comment. Paragraph 5 is adopted. Paragraph 6. Any comments on paragraph 6? Distinguished delegates, paragraph 6 is adopted. Is there any comment on paragraph 7? I see no comment. Paragraph 7 is adopted. Paragraph 8. Any comments on paragraph 8, distinguished delegates? I see none. Paragraph 8 is adopted. We are moving to paragraph 9. Are there any comments on paragraph 9? I see none. Paragraph 9 is adopted. Paragraph 10. Any comments, distinguished delegates, on paragraph 10? I recognize distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Хотел бы привлечь внимание к последнему предложению параграфа 10. Предложению, которое сейчас звучит следующим образом. Under the same agenda item, panel discussion was held to provide Asia-Pacific perspective on reinvigorated multilateral system as a contribution to the Summit of the Future to be held in New York on 22nd, 23rd September 2024. Мы не согласны с такой формулировкой. Мы возражаем против такой формулировки. Мы предлагаем следующую формулировку. Она короткая. Секретариат вполне сумеет ее записать. Я ее произнесу достаточно медленно на английском языке. Under the same agenda item, a high-level panel on the road to the 2024 Summit of the Future was organized, which was dedicated to the Summit of the Future to be held.
Distinguished delegate, could you slow down for typing purpose, properly typing?
Under the same agenda item, a high-level panel on the road to the 2024 Summit of the Future was organized, which was dedicated to the Summit of the Future to be held in New York on 22nd and 23rd September 2024. Full stop. Now I read it. Under the same agenda item, a high-level panel on the road to the 2024 Summit of the Future was organized, which was dedicated to the Summit of the Future to be held in New York on 22nd and 23rd of September. Спасибо.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Russian Federation. We have before us paragraph 10 with the amendment proposed by the distinguished delegate of Russian Federation. Is there consensus on this section? I see no objection. I declare paragraph 10 as amended by the distinguished delegate of Russian Federation, adopted by the forum. Now we move to para 11. Is there any comment on para 11? I see none. The para 11 is adopted. Let's move to para 12. Is there any comment on para 12? I see none. Para 12 is adopted. Now is there para 12? I recognize distinguished delegate from Iran.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Regarding the paragraph 12, in the second line, after the implementation 2030 agenda, we have to refer to the full term. So it goes like that. The implementation of 2030 agenda for sustainable development. So in different parts of the text, we have so many phrases like this. So we have to refer to the full term. Whenever the text refers to 2030 agenda, we have to complete it for sustainable development. Thank you.
We have before us paragraph 12 with the amendment proposed by the distinguished delegate of Iran. Is there any consensus on this paragraph? I see none. Para 12 is adopted. We are moving to para 13. Is there any comment on para 13? I recognize distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Приглашаю ваше внимание и внимание участников к последнему предложению параграфа 13. Слова, в частности, serve as input. Слова serve as input мы считаем необходимым вычеркнуть и заменены следующими словами. Inform the high-level political forum. Фраза будет звучать: The participants noted the views expressed during the round tables, which would inform the high-level political forum. Спасибо.
I request the Secretary to clarify on that.
Thank you, Chair. For your suggested edit there, the only question that I would maybe like to ask you, if I may, is what would be the difference between serving as an input or informing the high-level political forum? Just so that we have a better understanding of this and can address and in our future documents differentiate between the two. Thank you.
Первое. Во-первых, ценю, что секретариат задает вопросы. Второе. Удивлен таким вопросом со стороны секретариата. Третье. Объяснение. Слова serve as input имеют правовое подтекст и правовое значение. implication. Спасибо. Поэтому мы совершенно целенаправленно предложили формулировку would inform. Как я сказал в своем вступительном слове, те предложения, которые мы вносим сейчас в документ, они не имеют абсолютно никакого отношения к редакционной правке документа. Они несут в себе объяснение принципиального, системного, процедурного и юридического характера. Спасибо.
I recognize distinguished delegate from Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We also have comments on the last sentence. In fact, we had the same discussion last year at APFSD, and Inform is part of that as well. To also add, the participants noted that in front of views, we should put various views, because this was not a negotiated session. Many different perspectives were laid out, and there was no uniform perspective. And we do agree with the legal implication of the word, the input, so we are fine with inform, but instead of would, we would say which are to inform, or which can. We're flexible with either one.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from Japan. I recognize distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Для транспарентности и для того, чтобы ускорить наш процесс, я хочу очень быстро отреагировать на то, что сказал наш уважаемый коллега из делегации Японии. Первое. Абсолютно верно было подмечено, что мы уже обсуждали такого рода вещи на прошедшем форуме по устойчивому развитию. Второе. Мы также благодарны делегации Японии за предложение добавить слово various views. Мы с этим согласны. И с нашей точки зрения это также относится к поправке, имеющей сущностное значение, meaningful. И третье. Мы согласны с тем предложением, которое наша коллега из Японии сделала в отношении того слова would. Мы готовы с этим согласиться. Спасибо.
I recognize delegate from United States of America. Yeah, it's not visible from here. Which country is that?
United Kingdom.
Thank you. I recognize the delegate from United Kingdom.
Thank you. We are happy with inform instead of input, but we would request that the Secretariat ensure that the language is consistent with the language used by other regional commissions around the world, please.
Thank you. We have before us paragraph 13 with the amendment proposed by the distinguished delegates from... I recognize distinguished delegate from Japan.
We just want to be clear, we really prefer not to use the word input. Thank you. Inform is better, but I don't know whether the other regional commissions use it or not, so I just wanted to put that up front. Thank you.
I recognize distinguished delegate from United Kingdom, followed by distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Please could you check which wording the other regional commissions use and ensure that the language we use is consistent with that? That is our preference, please.
Thank you. I recognize distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Первое. Мы хотели бы четко подчеркнуть, что считаем единственно уместным слово «inform». Мы также отмечаем, что это является отражением предпочтения как минимум еще одной делегации. Третье. Я бы не хотел здесь вовлекаться в дискуссию относительно того, насколько уместно нам здесь учитывать те процессы и те формулировки, которые принимаются на других площадках ООН. Я бы предпочел ограничиться строго рамками той комиссии, под эгидой которой мы работаем. Честно сказать, я был бы готов к дискуссии относительно того, каково системное соотношение работы различных вспомогательных органов системы ООН, какими уставными документами и процедурными правилами они руководствуются, что с точки зрения правил переговорного процесса может приниматься к сведению для интерпретации языка, который принимается на этих площадках, и так далее, и так далее. Но я думаю, что было бы уместным здесь ограничиться тем, какие решения принимает конкретно данное вспомогательное, один из основных органов системы ООН, каковым является ESCAP. Спасибо.
Now we have before us paragraph 13 with the amendment proposed by the distinguished delegates of Russian Federation, Japan, and United Kingdom. Is there consensus on this section? I say no objection. Para 13 is adopted. Now we are moving to para 14. Is there any comment on para 14? I recognize the distinguished delegate from Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a very minor addition, paragraph 14. In the third line, after discussed possible priority areas for accelerated action, because there were various priorities and it wasn't really a negotiated outcome. Thank you.
We have before us paragraph 14 with the amendment proposed by the distinguished delegate of Japan. I recognize distinguished delegate from Armenia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a minor technical request. If it's possible to make the text bigger on the screens, because it's a little bit difficult to follow the changes. Thank you.
Is there consensus on this section in this paragraph, paragraph 14? I see no objection. Paragraph 14 is adopted. Let's move to the paragraph 15. Is there any comment on paragraph 15? I see none. I recognize distinguished delegate from Iran.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman. As we mentioned before in paragraph 12, minor amendment, we refer to, right now here we refer to paragraph 15. So please, we have the phrase of 2030 agenda in different parts of the draft report. So whenever we refer to 2030 agenda, and wherever in the draft report, please make a complete reference. 2030 agenda for sustainable development. So please, in order to be coherent in the whole text, we refer to 2030 agenda for sustainable development. Thank you.
I would like to request Secretary for some clarification.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, distinguished delegate from Iran. I am advised here by our chief editor of ESCAP that actually using the term 2030 agenda as a short form in the document is accepted from a UN editorial point of view. So we can, of course, reflect your edit's 2030 agenda for sustainable development, but from an editorial point, it's absolutely fine to just use 2030 agenda in the document. Thank you.
Thank you. We have before us paragraph 15 with us, with the amendment proposed by the distinguished delegates from Iran. Is there consensus on this change, on this section? On this 15, paragraph 15. I see none, no objection. Paragraph 15 is adopted. Let's move to paragraph 16. On this paragraph 16, there is no agenda item. Is there any comment or amendment on this paragraph 16? I see none. Paragraph 16 is adopted. Moving to 17. Is there any comment on paragraph 17? I recognize the distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Мы бы просили отложить рассмотрение параграфа 17 до того момента, как мы рассмотрим все прочие параграфы этого документа, включая приложение к докладу. Спасибо.
I would like to request Secretary to clarify on this.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to the distinguished delegate from the Russian Federation. It makes sense, of course, to defer the discussion of paragraph 17, which adopts the present report, until we've adopted, so we can move that after paragraph 21. However, I'd like to address the point that you raised, and there might be a misunderstanding from our side. The documents, the paragraphs prepared or presented in Annex 1 and Annex 2 of the Chair's summary will be posted up on the internet for comments. We will not be going through those at this meeting today, however, allow delegations a week's time to respond to any corrections that we will have. Thank you very much.
I recognize distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Мы не согласны с таким порядком действий и возражаем против такого подхода. У нас имеются сущностные, правовые и системные основания для того, чтобы в том числе рассмотреть весь документ в его целокупности, в том числе включая приложение. При этом, конечно, мы прекрасно понимаем, что приложение, и в частности summary председателя, не относятся к числу документов, подлежащих переговорам. However, тем не менее, это было именно предложение секретариата обратить внимание на фактологические поправки, factual correction. И в начале своего, в своем первом выступлении я сказал, что те фактологические поправки, которые могут вноситься делегациями, они имеют сущностное значение для всех делегаций. Это не вопрос того, что мы прочтем потом, 2 недели спустя. Поэтому мы настаиваем на том, чтобы мы сейчас рассматривали документ целиком, включая приложение. Я еще раз подчеркну, чтобы мы уже не возвращались к этой теме. Простите, что мне придется сейчас сказать еще пару слов. Мы вовсе не собираемся переходить и приглашать участников к переговорам по summary председателя. И вовсе не имеем в виду насыщать summary председателя многочисленнейшими поправками. Но те фактологические поправки, которые с нашей точки зрения имеют принципиальное значение, principal meaning, и которые вполне достойны того, чтобы быть доведенными до сведения всех участников, мы это настаиваем, чтобы нам была предоставлена возможность это сделать сегодня и здесь. Спасибо.
I now would like to request the Secretary to elaborate on our ESCAP procedure, practice, and possible solution.
Thank you, Chair. If I may respond to the distinguished delegate from the Russian Federation, it would be helpful for me as Secretary to understand why the past practice of posting this report online and allowing delegates 1 week time to correct factual errors in the report is insufficient, and whether all delegations here would prefer to go through the annex paragraph by paragraph. I mean, if they are factual corrections, these are easy to, and it would give delegates also more time, 1 week time to correct these factors rather than go through these many paragraphs and adopt the report, including its annex today. So I understand that you would prefer one way, but we do have 53 member states, and maybe some of them would prefer to have more time in their capitals to go through this report. So this would be good for me to understand why deviate from past practice, in particular that in all of the 10 previous forums, we have actually never discussed the chair's summary, why we would be so inclined to do so at this 11th forum. Thank you very much.
I recognize delegate from Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On paragraph 17, we did harbor concerns that the first sentence talks about the present report was adopted on 23rd February when the annex is extremely long to be really introduced just a couple of hours before, the adoption timing. And we haven't, I think a lot of delegates haven't gone through the full thing in sufficient detail. But nonetheless, I think at minimum, does this report on the first sentence include the annex? Is it the present report without the annex was adopted? And also, in that light, and I would probably ask native English speakers to chime in here, but the chair's summary of the discussions held during the 11th forum So there needs to be some language about subject to review by member states or something like that. I mean, it cannot prejudge the adoption of the content of something that we are about to review. And as I said before, from our first reading, there were some languages in there that's not agreed internationally, et cetera, et cetera. And some, citations which we weren't really clear was really that specifically mentioned with such emphasis at this meeting. Thank you. And I also would like to point out that there should be upfront a very clear message that the content of the annex was not negotiated.
I recognize the distinguished delegate from United Kingdom.
Thank you, Chair. We are happy to continue with the precedent set by the previous APFSDs and give delegates time to go through the report and summary when it's posted. Thank you.
Thank you. I recognize the distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Я хотел бы ответить на тот вопрос, который был задан секретариатом. И хотел бы извиниться за то, что переводчикам сейчас придется поработать. Я бы хотел начать с очень известной шутки, которая среди русских людей называется английской шуткой. Старое поместье в Англии. Старый лорд и молодой лорд завтракают. И вдруг молодой лорд высказывает неодобрение по поводу завтрака. Старый лорд спрашивает молодого лорда: «Сын, ты 7 лет ничего не говорил за завтраком?» Молодой лорд отвечает: «Все 7 лет поридж был абсолютно прекрасным, а сегодня он плохой». Это что касается, почему мы поднимаем вопрос о том, как рассматривать документ. Теперь по существу. Мы не видим никакого отклонения, deviation, в практике, которую мы сейчас, собственно говоря, придерживаемся. На предыдущих форумах действительно мы могли не поднимать каких-либо вопросов, потому что porridge был абсолютно хорошим. Сейчас, извините, переводчики, но у нас всегда была возможность для того, чтобы на предыдущих форумах эти вопросы поднять. Но мы их не поднимали. Поридж был хорошим. Сейчас у нас есть некоторые, немногочисленные, я подчеркиваю, я отвечаю на вопрос секретариата о том, что в приложениях много параграфов. Первое. У нас нет 100 поправок к 130 параграфам. Условно говоря. Второе. Мы хотим, чтобы те соображения, которые мы хотим высказать, были услышаны всеми государствами-членами сегодня и сейчас. Третье. Конечно, мы не возражаем против того, что все прочие государства-члены высказали их соображения, их поправки, фактологические поправки в течение того времени после сегодняшнего дня, которое на это будет предоставлено. Мы абсолютно не возражаем против этого. Мы абсолютно не предлагаем принять документ сегодня и сейчас и не дать возможности делегациям представить их фактологические поправки в последующий срок. Это суверенное право каждой делегации. Таким же суверенным правом в отношении своей делегации мы хотим воспользоваться сегодня. Прошу это хорошо понять. Спасибо.
Thank you, distinguished delegates. Regarding the comment from distinguished delegate from Japan, we will change this date and make it 29 February 2024 because we'll be expecting some amendment and will be adjusted. And regarding the comment from distinguished delegate from Russian Federation, I would like to request distinguished delegate from Russian Federation to send the written comments, the comments expressed here in written form as well, so we can, or other delegates also can review and adjust on the paragraph. Just few clarifications about the date. The adopted date would be 23rd February 2024, but the issue date, only the present report would be adopted on 23rd, not the annex, and there will be some time, and that will be the release date would be 29 February 2024. That is the date correction. Now I recognize distinguished delegate from Japan.
Can the Secretariat please bring back paragraph 17 on the screen again, please? And then was it 17? Was it 17? What was the, yeah. So then you would have to write the present report without the annex, right? And then I would say maybe different paragraph, maybe separate the next paragraph on the chair's summary. The chair's summary, which is not a negotiated document, I guess, will be subject to member states' review or something like that, participants' review. I mean, I would just write out the procedures. I will let this, Secretariat think about the verbiage there to complete the sentence. And we'll include the list of side events, and if you can help clean that, the chair's summary of the discussion. I would delete the and, which is not a negotiated document, comma, will be subject to member states' review for accuracy or something like that. And will include the list of side events. I mean, do we need all that held during the 11th forum? Do we need the discussions held during the 11th forum needs to be, I guess, maybe. Yeah, if you can grammatically change, I would just put a full stop after maybe the 11th forum. And on the margins of the 11th forum, we don't need our annex to the. I'm talking about the end of the sentence. It's very long. I would just, clean it up. Yeah. Maybe, please, native English speakers, please fix.
Okay, the language would be cleaned up by the editors. I would like to invite now we would complete the review of all the 21 paragraph. Then I will invite Russian Federation for comment on annex. Now we have paragraph 18 with the amendments. I invite distinguished delegate from Russian Federation for comments.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. И я бы хотел прежде всего напомнить, что изначальное предложение моей делегации состояло в том, чтобы отложить рассмотрение параграфа 17 до того момента, как мы рассмотрим весь документ. Я надеюсь, теперь и вы, и секретариат, и все государства-члены и участники удостоверились, что за этим предложением стоял определенный смысл. Потому что вот то, что сейчас происходит на экране, Это как раз то, к чему мы бы хотели вернуться после того, как рассмотрим весь документ. И я хотел бы подчеркнуть, что у нас точно так же, как у делегации Японии, я хочу подчеркнуть, что во многом ход наших мыслей совпадает с тем, что высказал представитель делегации Японии. Many aspects, которые высказал представитель делегации Японии, у нас с ними совпадают. Мы хотели это отложить на потом, после прочтения документа. И у нас точно так же, у российской делегации, я хотел бы сейчас подчеркнуть это специально, у нас имеются идеи относительно конструктивного, подчеркиваю, конструктивного решения тех вопросов, которые возникают. Кстати сказать, они идут приблизительно в том же ключе, как это было предложено делегацией Японии. Еще раз подчеркиваю, мы настоятельно просим отложить рассмотрение параграфа 17 до того момента, как мы рассмотрим весь документ. В качестве PPS хочу подчеркнуть, в том виде, как сейчас сформулирован параграф 17, в юридическом прочтении он означает, что приложения, annexes, являются неотъемлемой частью документа. Давайте отложим, я предлагаю, параграф 17. Мы пройдем, посмотрим весь доклад, включая предоставление возможности тем делегациям, которые захотят высказать что-то по поводу приложений, и мы за собой это право резервируем. Разумеется, потом мы можем предоставить в секретариат и письменные поправки. Но давайте мы это сделаем. И еще раз подчеркиваю, у меня карманы не пухнут от миллиона предложений. In my pockets. Давайте продолжим нашу работу в конструктивном ключе с тем, чтобы, так сказать, пройти весь документ, и мы легко найдем решение. Я в этом уверен. У нас тоже есть предложение по этому поводу. Спасибо.
I recognize a distinguished delegate from United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a point of clarification again on paragraph 17. Because of the changes before the last sentence, I would just like to suggest, considering as well the other comments from the floor, that we be more specific in terms of the roundtables, whether or not they will be part of the present report, as mentioned here, or that they will be released later with the other annexes or addendums. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, para 17, discussion on para 17 is still going on. Let's discuss on 18, 19, 20, and 20 para, and we'll come back to discuss, finalize the para 17. Let's move to para 18. Is there any comment suggestion on para 18? Okay. I recognize distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Спасибо, господин председатель. Вторая строчка. Слова serve as input to зачеркнуть и заменить словом inform. Спасибо.
We have before us para 18 with the amendment proposed by the distinguished delegate from Russian Federation. Is there consensus on this paragraph? I recognize distinguished delegates from United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along the same lines as paragraph 17, I would just like to ask for us to clarify the word addendum, whether that only refers to the roundtables or also the chairs. I'm sorry, if we can move up a little bit, the chair's summary of the discussions, so that we're clear what is the addendum when we talk about this report and its addendum. Thank you.
I would like to request Secretary to clarify on this issue.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify the two questions that we had on the addendum will have the summaries of the five roundtables only, and it's actually issued as a separate report. It's only called addendum because it's linked to this report. That's what I've been informed by the editors. I hope that clarifies.
Thank you for that clarification from the Secretary. We would like to go back later on paragraph 17, again in reference to the addendum when we get to that discussion. Thank you.
I recognize distinguished delegate from Japan.
I just want to highlight that the BIS is not a hard proposal for us. Like, we are very uncomfortable about the content of the chair's summary, what the addendum actually is. We probably should spell it out, what exactly the documents are, so that we're in full agreement here. And also the addendum at the top of that document should state very clearly that this is a, compilation of various views, and that it was not a intergovernmentally negotiated outcome document. If the Secretary can really put that up front in each of those so-called addendums, but I would prefer not addendum, instead of the word addendum, just really put a laundry list of what you're really talking about so that we understand what it is. Thank you.
We have before us paragraph 18 with the amendment proposed by the distinguished delegate from Russian Federation. Is there consensus on this paragraph? I see none. Paragraph 18 is adopted. Now moving to 19. Is there any comment on para 19? I recognize distinguished delegate from Japan.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, you kind of quickly adopted paragraph 18, but shouldn't there be a square bracket around addendum to reflect our discussions in that text, right? Because we asked for specific citations of what documents that would include. Instead of saying Japan reserves, can you write, what do you call it? Itemize the name of the documents. Instead of the word addendum, write what you mean by that. And maybe, include element that this is subject to review for accuracy, right?
We will do that. That means this will be elaborated. We have the document number mentioned explicitly in this space. Now I recognize distinguished delegate from United States of America.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The United States agrees with Japan's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I invite the distinguished delegate from Russian Federation for comment.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Мы, так же, как и делегация, только что сейчас высказавшиеся, делегация Японии, Соединенных Штатов, мы точно так же будем готовы вернуться к тому, чтобы поискать развязки для того параграфа 18, который сейчас мы обсуждаем. В принципе, реагируя сейчас, я могу сказать, что я не вижу проблем с тем, чтобы включить формулировку, которая сейчас предложена в Summary of Roundtable Discussions. Другое дело, что мы вообще не видим этого summary. У нас нет намерения убрать из текста, убрать это предложение. Это очень важно, чтобы это было в тексте. И мы понимаем, почему и делегация Соединенных Штатов подняла этот вопрос. Проблема в том, что вот этот самый summary of roundtable discussions мы даже не видим сейчас. Это не очень хорошо. В принципе, мы готовы согласиться с формулировкой, которая сейчас у нас на экране. Summary of roundtable discussions. Мое личное стремление было бы здесь записать что-то такое, что обозначит, что этот summary of roundtable discussions will be added to the report. Теперь, собственно говоря, почему я поднял флаг? Потому что мы рассматривали параграф 19. А правильно ли я понимаю, что я могу сейчас высказать соображение по параграфу 19?
Let's finish 18, para 18, and we'll move to 19. So,
No, with your indulgence then, as for para 18, I said that as a possible compromise and quick solution, we can go along with those fixes we have on the screen right now. Thank you.
Paragraph 18 is before us with the amendment proposed just now. Is there any is there consensus on this paragraph? I recognize the distinguished delegate from Japan.
I'm sorry, this is clarification. So the summary of roundtables is the chair's summary, right? No. So it's separate. So the present report So the chair summary will not be circulated. I'm getting very confused what's going to be submitted. And also I said subject to review for accuracy or something like that to indicate that this is not, this current state is not final. And I guess, are we including the chair summary in there? I'm just very confused what's going to be submitted.
Great, thank
I
you.
would like to
Thank you.
request.
Let me clarify. Thank you very much. The chair's summary, which has some elements of the roundtables in it, as you may have seen, is part of this report. However, a detailed summary of the roundtables will be issued as an addendum, which is referred to here in 18 and 17. And as you'd requested, we'll make sure that there's a document number or title explicitly linked in this. And we can also put up front, as you'd requested, that this is a non-negotiated summary document of the roundtables.
So do we agree on paragraph 18 now? Is there any comment? I see no objection. Paragraph 18 is adopted. Let's move to 19, para 19. Is there any comment on paragraph 19? I recognize distinguished delegates from Russian Federation.
Благодарю вас, господин председатель. Мы предлагаем слово publication заменить на слово analytical report. Спасибо.
We have before us paragraph 19 with the amendment proposed by the distinguished delegate from Russian Federation. Is there consensus on this paragraph? I see none. Paragraph 18 is adopted. Sorry, 19 is adopted. Now let's move to 20, paragraph 20. Is there any comment on paragraph 20? I see none. Paragraph 20 is adopted. Now, para 21. Is there any comment on para 21? I see none. Paragraph 21 adopted. Now let's go back to. I recognize distinguished delegate from Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just quickly reviewed Annex 2, but did we differentiate whether some are virtual only or, in-person side events? I'm just curious because, they're kind of different formats, but it might be good to put in parentheses or something like that in the report for documentation. I didn't count the number of side events, but I assess that they probably include all. Just wanted to be
Thank
sure.
you, distinguished delegate from Japan. We will do that. Now, I would like to invite Russian distinguished delegate from Russian Federation to provide comments or any suggestion on annex. After we discuss on annex, then only we will go back to paragraph 17. As proposed, there will be 1 week time to other delegates, all the delegates, for written comment on annex, and after that the 17 will be adopted.
Спасибо, господин председатель, за предоставленную возможность нашей делегации высказать те соображения по приложению 1, которые мы считаем принципиальными и которые, как мы считаем, мы бы хотели, чтобы услышали все участники форума. И, как я сказал, у меня не миллион таких соображений. У нас 4 соображения. Но они носят принципиальный характер с нашей точки зрения. Первое. В том, что касается key messages. Второй пункт, параграф 2. С нашей точки зрения ситуация преподносится в слишком розовом цвете. В слишком розовом свете. Rosy picture. Мы считаем, что прежде чем перейти к конкретному описанию конкретных целей, таких как климат и прочее, нужно сказать главную вещь. Ситуация с выполнением повестки 2030 исключительно тревожная. Alarming, I would even say. Отсюда наше предложение, что первым подпунктом A должна быть фраза before we proceed to climate. The progress towards implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development has been very slow and uneven. That was the key message in the country statements of so many delegations, including mine. That was a key signal. This is extremely alarming that we are lagging behind and that at the current pace, the Asia-Pacific region will not achieve any of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. Then, before proceeding to elaborating on specific SDGs, which are absolutely fine in the text, we do not argue with that, we have to send a main signal. We believe it is extremely important. That's the thing about which I think all the APFSD participants would like to inform the high-level forum in New York. I will provide the specific proposal to the Secretariat later on as requested, but as I already said, the message would read, the progress towards implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development has been very slow and uneven. Full stop. Это первое. Второе. В том, что касается части 2, римская 2, параграф 4. Please take note that in many actually parts of this section 2, the chair, under his responsibility, he indicates that several representatives stressed that participants recognized, some representatives addressed, one representative called for. Then my question is, why something which we believe is an extremely important signal we mentioned is not included? It could be included actually factually, like one representative. It's okay, but we don't find that in the text. And why we wanted actually to be that the subject for the discussion we are having now with the presence of all the participants, that's to address a very important thing, that what we need and what our delegation called for, it's strengthening the political commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and reinvigorated collaborative efforts to accelerate the implementation of the agenda. In our opinion, this is something of the system-shaping nature. If we do not reinforce the political commitment, which needs to be reinforced, I've been through all those sustainable development meetings starting from 1992, believe it or not. And what I feel with utmost regret, that what is being said from the rostrum of the United Nations does not necessarily correspond to the actual deeds. So the issue of the strengthening of political commitment and reinvigorated collaborative actions to accelerate the implementation is of paramount importance. Это второе. Третье. Римская 3. Параграф 10. Фактически он сформулирован неправильно. Что мы видим в параграфе 10? Under the same agenda item, participants discussed regional perspectives on the outcome document of the Summit of the Future. Full stop. Я присутствовал в этот момент в зале. Никакой дискуссии не было. Панелисты сделали свои доклады. Очень хорошее представление и доклад был сделан заместителем генерального секретаря по документу A Pact for the Future. И вуаля! Никакой дискуссии не было. Что реально было? Это продолжение country statements, которые продолжились после утренней сессии. Это принципиально важно. Фактически по такому важному вопросу, как подготовка саммита будущего, дискуссий не было. Не было никаких инпутс и вкладов. Ряд делегаций в своих country statements затронули вопросы, касающиеся саммита будущего. Отнюдь не все. Поэтому мы предлагаем factual correction. I stress factual correction. Under the same agenda item, participants were briefed on the outcome document of the Summit of the Future to be entitled A Pact for Future with the focus on, etc., etc. И далее, and then, paragraph 11 would read that in their statements under the agenda item 2, participants emphasized, и все, что далее, and all to follow, like 11, 12, 13, 14, they should be presented in the sequencing of order like A, B, C, D. That will clearly indicate the factual situation we had on the ground. The delegations continued their country statements. Some delegations in their country statements addressed the issue, and the content, what they said, is reproduced in the chair's summary. But the panel discussion was not there. It is extremely important, and the lesson has to be drawn from this situation. Это третье. И последнее, четвертое. Я хотел бы привлечь внимание к разделу Римская 5, пункт Б, пункт B. The title reads, Implementation of the 2030 Agenda at the sub-regional level. Ну и почитайте, что там содержится. Ничего про субрегионы там не сказано. Содержание этого раздела не соответствует его заглавию. Мы абсолютно твердо убеждены, что председателю вместе с поддержкой со стороны секретариата требуется переработать весь этот пункт Б. Ведь у нас же прошли форумы для Северной и Центральной Азии, для Восточной и Северо-Восточной Азии. Они все подготовили свои документы, которые должны были проинформировать наш форум. Но ведь здесь ничего нет ни про один субрегион. Пять параграфов общего содержания. Ни одного параграфа по конкретной специфике, не относящейся к Средней и Центральной Азии, будь это Восточная Азия, будь это специфика тихоокеанских государств, Пасифик, ничего этого нет. Это требуется переработать полностью. Спасибо. Вот 4 соображения, которые мы считаем принципиально важными. А небольшие редакционные, письменные поправки мы в секретариат направим. У нас письменных 3. Потому что последнее, что я сказал, это не поддается никакой правке. Это должно быть полностью переделано. Спасибо.
Thank you very much, distinguished delegate from the Russian Federation. I would like to request all the distinguished delegates to provide a written comment within a week on the annex. And now we go back to paragraph 17. We will adjust the comments, suggestions received from distinguished delegates on annex, and that will be incorporated accordingly. And now we have paragraph 17 here. Any comments, suggestions again? Recognize distinguished delegates from Russian Federation.
I would like to specifically focus on the what is now para 17, and we can go along with the proposal made by the delegation of Japan, but I believe that it has to be clearly indicated without the annexes in plural, because we have number of annexes plus, as we know, discovered, we also would have an addendum. I don't know why we need to differentiate between Annex 1, Annex 2, and an addendum, but that's okay. This is for proofreading by the Secretariat and the editorial board. We are fine with that. That said, we are absolutely fine with the amendment proposed by Japan, provided our plural S will be the indication that it is annexes in plural will be accommodated. Thank you.
I recognize distinguished delegate from United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Along the lines of our discussions in 17, 18, and I believe 19 as well, I think the suggestion earlier to have a clear definition of what an addendum or what an annex is would be helpful. Then that way, when we say the present report without the annexes, and if you look at the document that was just viewed earlier, they were referred to as annexes. And is that the same as addendum, which refers then to the roundtable summaries? I think then it would be really helpful to have that clarification or definition right offhand. I think once we do that, the rest of the paragraph 17, what will become the 18th and 19th will be easier to understand, or that it will basically avoid any confusion. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate. We will accommodate that. Now I recognize distinguished delegate from Japan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're fine with the annexes. Another point of clarification we can probably make is maybe put a footnote saying maybe behind report, in a footnote, say paragraph 1 to 21 in a footnote, and that would be very clear.
Thank you. I recognize distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only reason why I requested the floor is to say that I cannot concur more with those actually comments made by our colleague from delegation of United States, that we really have to avoid confusion. And there are two immediate legal fixes for that. We either go through the footnote, which exactly indicate which annexes and which addendum we are talking about, or it can be incorporated into the body of the text, but it would be absolutely a proper thing to be done to avoid this kind of confusion, so that we could understand that Annex 1, title, Annex 2, title, addendum. I say again, I'm highly perplexed why we need to introduce another qualifier, but anyway, whatever, we are not about that. We are about the clarity of what is actually represented in those annexes. So, as I said, the only reason I'm raising the flag is to say that we have two options in terms of legal fixes, either to include it, incorporate it into the body of the text, or to make a footnote and give the clear and full title of those annexes. Thank you.
I invite distinguished delegate from Japan for comment.
Sorry, just to clarify, my comment was we agree with the request to itemize the annex, whatever, the title, and also footnote, after, so it's both, including both elements. The footnote saying paragraph 1 to 21 after report, so that it's clear that it doesn't include the annexes, and then also saying without annexes. So just to be 100% clear.
Thank you, distinguished delegates. We will uh, incorporate all these, address all these comments in paragraph 17. Are there any further comments on paragraph 17? So, amended version of 17 is in front of us. Any suggestion on that? I see no other suggestions. So para 17 is adopted. As we have reviewed all the paragraphs of the report, I propose that the draft report be adopted with editorial changes to be taken care of by the Secretariat. There is some comment, some view from distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Господин председатель, ну, подождите секундочку. Но у нас же еще есть параграф 17 bis. Ну, давайте мы закончим 17 bis, и тогда нам будет понятно, собственно говоря, что мы принимаем в целом. Спасибо.
Okay. Is there any comment on para 17 bis? I recognize distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to thank the delegation of Japan, for example, for the proposal made on the separate self-standing para 17 bis and the possible text in this paragraph. Just minor edit. I wouldn't say that I could be 100% comfortable with the specific word accuracy. But on the other hand, I'm not going to protrude the discussion and to argue against. I would simply add a qualifier, factual accuracy, which would enhance, so to say, my level of comfort. So, to review for factual accuracy. Thank you. Otherwise, I have to say that I think if it might be the basis for consensus, we could go along with that. Thank you.
Okay, now is there any other comments on chapter 17 VS? I recognize distinguished delegate from United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back to number 17, and as discussed also earlier, I think it may be helpful to edit the last sentence for clarity, where we would say will be issued as an addendum to the present report at a later date or something to that effect. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further comments and suggestions on this? Great. So there is no more comments, suggestion. Now para 17 bis is adopted. I recognize the distinguished delegate from China.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've noted that the list of the side events and other social events is a separate document, which is the Annex 2, and it is separate from the chair summary, which is the Annex 1. So I think we need to remove will include here. So these are two separate annexes to this report. Or maybe we can paraphrase this paragraph to make it clear that these are two separate documents, but both are the annexes to this report. Thank you.
Okay. If I may thank the delegate from China for the comments. My colleagues will be putting some proposed text in there, which will highlight that the chair's summary will leave that is subject to member states' review for factual accuracy, and then we'll make sure that there's a note there, an additional annex will list the side events, et cetera, to make sure that they're different annexes. We'll take care of that. Thank you.
We now have a latest version of 17, para 17 base. Is there consensus on this version of para 17 base? I recognize distinguished delegate from United States of America.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a very minor, but hopefully clarifying change or edit would be to mention, instead of an additional annex, I would just say Annex 2, which includes the list of side events, to be more specific. Thank you.
Thank you. Are we happy with this version? Is there any is there consensus on this paragraph? Again, back to distinguished delegate from Russian Federation.
I'm sorry. I'm almost happy. I would have been happier being back home this Friday afternoon. And I fully concur that we are kind of honestly lost and we're splitting the hair, but that has to be preempted from the very beginning while those who were responsible for drafting the document had to preempt all these confusions, and all the delegations, at least number of the delegations, very rightfully indicated that we do not clearly see from the text per se what is Annex 1, Annex 2, and addendum on the round tables. And here in the room, we are lost. Could you please imagine the reading from our big bosses back home? Suppose, if at all, they would like to share their lunch with reading of this sophisticated document. And when we talk about the annexes, we have to be consistent, and that was very rightly indicated that we have to indicate Annex 2. So then the chair's summary, which is Annex 1, so that we could have the clear understanding of what we are talking about, has to be also indicated. It's not my intention to protrude that discussion, honestly. That can be easily done through the proofreading by the Secretariat. As I said, we had a number of options, and I indicated two possible options, either the footnote or the incorporation of the text, the full title of Annex 1, Annex 2, addendum on a round table, and then we avoid all this confusion and being lost among three trees. Thank you.
Yeah, we have proposed a proposal here to address your comments. Is that okay? Thank you very much. Is there consensus on this version? This must be the last. I see no objection. Now, para 17 and 17B. 17 already adopted. 17B is also adopted. Thank you very much. As we have reviewed all the paragraphs of the report with very lively discussion, I propose that the draft report be adopted with editorial changes to be taken care of by the Secretariat. As we all in agreement on, are we all in agreement on this point? Thank you. None. Distinguished delegates, as I see no views to the contrary, I declare this report adopted. This concludes the adoption of the report. The report, including the chair's summary, will be open for comments only on factual errors until the 29th of February 2024. The report will be conveyed to the Commission at its 80th in April and to the high-level political forum on sustainable development in July. Would any delegation like to take the floor briefly for comments before we move to the closing? Yeah, I recognize delegates to that corner. Could please introduce, because I couldn't read properly the name on the text.
It's the major groups, Your Excellency. Excellencies, I'm Ali Jilani speaking on behalf of the Asia-Pacific Regional CSOs Engagement Mechanism. We really appreciate the Chair's work on the summary, however, would like to re-emphasize the following for necessary inclusion. The summary must acknowledge ESCAP's 2024 report on the scale of regional progress on the SDGs, currently lacklustering at merely 17%, while beyond the midpoint of the 2030 agenda, with massive stagnations and regressions, and that it will not be achieved before 2062, to underscore the sense of urgency and political will required to reverse the trends. The summary must also highlight that the progress is based on 52% of the available data, with a humongous 48% of the unknown, requiring urgent and efficient measures to enhance the Statistical Commission's capacities across the region vis-à-vis ensuring complementarity by integrating CSOs and citizen-led data initiatives to better understand the situation on the ground. The summary must also flag the Asia in the Pacific region is most vulnerable to climate change, alongside pollution and biodiversity-related challenges, with Goal 13 in regression, while amidst the biggest cost of living crisis of the 21st century, and many countries facing debt distress, resulting in millions of the most marginalized suffering the hardest consequences of the crises, urging the need for enhanced development and climate financing. The summary must also reiterate the need to enact urgent fundamental structural reforms in global governance, revamping the colonial neoliberal designs across institutions through a UN-led international financial and trade architecture reform, especially in the IMF, World Bank, and WTO, adequate accountability mechanisms for ODA commitments fulfillment, focusing on quality of aid, a comprehensive debt resolution mechanism, equitable climate justice measures, and a binding global taxation architecture to curb illicit financial flows that exceed ODA by a massive margin. The summary should also clarify the region's position on Summit of the Future to ensure the reinforcement of the SDGs commitments without driving the political will away, parallel with meaningful engagement of civil society organizations, while also curbing the increasing corporate capture of our multilateral processes to ensure a bold, responsive, and efficient multilateralism that translates transformation for both people and the planet. The report should also stress the need for formal recognition and integration of the chair's summary into the HLPF and SOTF deliberative processes to inform the decisions at the global level to enhance the national, regional, global dynamic for policy coherence and holistic development programming. Finally, the chair's summary must recognize the right to development for all major groups, constituencies, and peoples in all their diversities, such as indigenous people, women, children and youth, rural and urban poor, smallholder and landless farmers, workers, fisherfolk, LGBTIQA, people living with HIV/AIDS, people living in conflict and disasters, youth, elderly, migrants, persons with disabilities, Dalits, and people discriminated based on work and descent, and their role as a catalyst of transformative change on the ground. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, distinguished representative from major groups. I see that there are no more delegations who wish to take the floor. I now close this agenda item. Excellencies. You still? Okay. I recognize distinguished delegate from United States of America.
Thank you. And we would just like to appreciate the member states who've come together today, in addition to the fact that we've had a number of stakeholders, to include those mentioned by our colleague, the indigenous groups, persons with disabilities, labor groups, youth groups, and human rights groups. I think that's a very important addition to this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, distinguished delegate from United States of America. Is there any other distinguished delegate want to take floor? I see none. Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, let's now move to the closing of the forum. I now have the honor to invite Ms. Armida Salcia Alisabana, Under Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Secretary of ESCAP, to deliver her closing remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, as we bring the 11th APFSD to a close, I'm very pleased to note that this year's forum, with its diverse participation and rich exchange of ideas, serves as a powerful reminder of our shared commitment to SDGs. I am grateful for the participation of participants that participate in person. Our note here is more than 1,000, including representatives from 44 member states, 1 associate member, and 4 observer members, alongside the vibrant contribution of many side events, more than 40, 10 associated events, and 38 exhibitors. Our discussions highlighted the critical need to address climate change and its impact on poverty, hunger, emphasizing the essential nature of an inclusive, multi-stakeholder approach for a transformative and accelerated implementation of SDGs. The insights and experiences of marginalized communities are invaluable, underscoring our commitment to ensuring that no one is left behind. Their participation enriches our solution, making them truly inclusive and equitable. To achieve sustainable development, urgent accelerated actions are required, supported by strong, sustained multilateral cooperation. At the country level, our efforts to transcend traditional silos and foster integrated policy making, as well as support, are critical for aligning government efforts with the SDGs. This collaborative governance culture is essential for benefiting everyone, especially the most vulnerable. Ambitious climate action, coupled with investment in energy sector, renewable energy, energy efficiency, for example, also has to prioritize gender equality and resilience. This is especially important for mitigating climate challenges and at the same time, supporting livelihoods. Additionally, the importance of regional and sub-regional cooperation to achieve sustainable development, especially for the priorities such as sustainable energy transition and effective resource management, cannot be overstated. Yet, the path ahead is not without its challenges. Acknowledging the barriers we face, including from the financial perspective as well as the policy gaps, is crucial. It underscores the reality of our mission and the need for sustained effort and continuous innovation. As we look forward to presenting the outcomes of this forum at the High-Level Political Forum, HLPF, in July in New York, let us carry with us the commitment to an inclusive as well as multi-stakeholder approach. This approach is our path to ensuring that no one is left behind as we work towards a more equitable, resilient, and sustainable future. I would like to extend my heartfelt appreciation and thanks to all participants for your invaluable contributions, to our chair, distinguished chair and vice chairs for their exceptional leadership. My appreciation also goes to the secretary team for their hard work and professionalism, dedication in making this event a success. I wish you safe travel to all delegates returning home and looking forward to seeing all at the 12th APFSD next year to be held here in Bangkok. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Executive Secretary. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we have reached the end of our program and the closing of the 11th Asia-Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. These past few days have been marked by an active and engaging exchange of ideas and experiences on our individual and collective efforts to advance the cause of sustainable development in the midst of multiple global challenges. Your active participation in this forum reaffirms our collective efforts to resolve the challenges and underscores our desire to achieve a sustainable future and to bring prosperity to all. In this regard, I would like to highlight to you the key messages stemming from the discussions held in the 11th forum, as I have captured them in my summary that is attached as Annex 1 to the report. These are the following. A. Climate change exacerbates poverty and hunger, threatening to reverse sustainable development gains, with vulnerable groups facing disproportionate impacts owing to their limited capacity to adapt the scarce resources. B. Ambitious climate action coupled with robust investments in social protection, energy efficiency and renewable energy production, and focused on gender equality and access for marginalized groups is necessary to mitigate the adverse effects of climate-induced disasters and support livelihoods. C. Integrated policy making can accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda. Voluntary national reviews are instrumental for aligning efforts at all levels of government and can foster collaboration and engagement, leading to forward-thinking, inclusive governance. D. Urgent and accelerated actions that also leverage science, technology, and innovation are essential for achieving sustainable development. Realizing the outcome document of the Summit of the Future to be entitled A Pact for the Future, and ensuring that no one and no country is left behind. These actions must be supported by strong and sustained multilateral cooperation and multilateralism, including through South-South and triangular cooperation for shared prosperity. E. Regional sub-regional cooperation plays a critical role in addressing transboundary challenges, enhancing connectivity and trade, strengthening food security, reducing the risk of disaster, and managing water resources sustainability. F. The United Nations Development System's technical and integrated support is indispensable for bolstering collective efforts on climate action, resilience building, the energy transition, and gender equality, while also ensuring the full and effective participation of all stakeholders in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Madam Executive Secretary, on behalf of the Vice Chairs and myself, let me reiterate our sincere appreciation for the honor bestowed upon us to lead this forum. I also wish to extend my gratitude to the Secretariat for its effective organization and serving of this forum, and it recognizes the work of interpreters, conference management, security, and all those from the Secretariat who worked behind the scenes to make this forum a successful one. With this, I bid you farewell and look forward to meeting you again at the subsequent Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. I ask the Secretary of the Forum to make housekeeping announcements.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. As a reminder, for those who have not completed the evaluation survey, I'd like to encourage you by scanning the QR code, which is up on the screen, or typing the link into your web browsers. It's important for us to have your feedback so we can improve future forums and events here at ESCAP. All of the sessions of this forum have been recorded and will be available on the meeting website after the meeting. We'll also be updating the website over the next weeks to add all of these statements and the recordings as they become available. So if you have not yet, could you please forward us your written statements that you held over the last few days. Finally, I'd like to thank all of our colleagues who, for their support to make this forum a successful event. I'd like to thank the Communications and Knowledge Management section, the Conference and Documentation Services section, importantly, Safety and Security, thank you very much, as well as the Division of Administration, particularly the Conference and General Services section, the Facilities Management Unit, and the Information Management Team, as well as the Communications and Technology section. So a long list of people who've been working here hard in the background over the last few weeks to make this a successful event. But finally, I'd like to invite all of you participants who are here to have attended this forum. If I can also ask you before you leave, I will hope you have a safe trip home, but please do not leave any belongings behind. It'll be difficult to retrieve them from Bangkok. So thank you very much for participating. I wish you all a safe travel home. Back to the chair. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. I hereby close the 11th Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development.